Hello and welcome to PMF IAS Magnum Weekly Current Affairs series. I'm Akshay Vrat and I'll be taking the current affairs on the subject of environment and ecology, and I'll be covering from the date of 7th of June 2025 till 20th of June 2025. That means it's going to be almost 2 weeks of current affairs on the subject of environment covered. Remember, I may not be able to take up all the news on environment, but I'll take up the ones which requires our understanding and they are very important from UPSC point of view. In fact, if you are preparing for any other competitive exam where environment as a subject holds a weightage, then this current affairs series could be very beneficial for you. Let us start with the topics that I'm going to discuss with you. So the first topic that I'm going to take, this is the list of the entire discussions. The first topic that I'm going to take is going to be on stratospheric aerosol injection, SAI, or this is also called stratospheric aerosol forcing. This is already an important topic considering the mitigation of climate change and whatever strategies that we can take up in avoiding or mitigating the impact of global warming. It's an important topic of discussion, not only from the context of current affairs, but also in general strategies against climate change. Then we'll talk about the NV Stats India. It is basically the first report on the statistics on the status of environment of the country. It is very important considering how our policies have been working, how our initiatives have functioned, and this is as per the United Nations own recommendations. So this becomes an important way of basically creating a standardization of data on the issues of or on the in the context of environment. Then we'll talk about the climate change performance index 2025. It has been recently released in the month of June itself. We'll talk about where does India stands in with respect to all the other 63 countries, technically 64, 63 plus European Union. So we'll see the comparison there. So this particular discussion involves a lot of data related current affairs. Then we'll talk about the recently concluded United Nations Ocean Conference, the third United Nations Ocean Conference that happened in 2025. It was organized in France, and interestingly, this particular conference, it was the third edition of this nature. The first one was organized in 2017, then in 2022, and in 2025 we had the third Ocean Conference of United Nations. Then we'll talk about the AV list. It's basically the first checklist on bird species that have been released. It is also an initiative that tries to standardize the parameters on specifying or checking the total bird biodiversity of the world. It is basically introduced by a very important organization which has also been asked previously in the UPSC exams, called BirdLife International. So we'll talk about the EV list eventually. Then there is a very popular term in the news called real field temperature, and apparently in one of my classes of late I've also discussed the meaning of real field and what is wet bulb temperature. So we'll talk about this here, and then we'll talk about the global oceans darkening. What is the reason why the oceans are getting darker? What is the meaning of this word ocean darkening? We'll try to understand what exactly this means. Typically real field temperature and global ocean darkening are the only two conceptual topic which we are going to talk about in today's class, and also the stratospheric aerosol injection. It will also have a little bit of concept discussed. Then we'll talk about the International Big Cat Alliance. The first meeting, the headquarter of the International Big Cat Alliance have been finalized in the first meeting itself, the first assembly meeting. So we'll talk about what has happened and where it was organized, all these things. So let us start with the first topic of our discussion, guys. The first topic is stratospheric aerosol injection. Now, what exactly is stratospheric aerosol injection? It is a very simple concept, but before I dive into what was there in the news and discuss its basics, it is, remember one more thing, guys. The entire data, the entire information shared in the PPT, it is sourced from the PMF IAS current affairs, a daily current affairs itself. So it would be highly beneficial for you guys if you are following the PMF IAS, Telegram channel, or otherwise also you have subscribed to different courses. Then you should be, I would highly recommend that you follow the PMF IAS daily current affairs. This helps you in, first of all, understanding what I'm delivering here, because this is directly sourced from there, and secondly, you'll be able to relate things much more easily when you try to compare or try to relate the discussions happening in this Magnum series with that of the notes that you get in the form of current affairs. So this is my personal advice. Please make sure that you guys subscribe to it and start reading the current affairs. They are highly beneficial, covers the entire information on the current affairs from the basics to the advanced level. So it is something that is going to benefit even the people who are just started their preparation. I hope you are able to understand. So guys, let us see. So let's try to break down the term at stratospheric aerosol injection. So injection is something that you understand. It is basically injecting something or applying something, right? So what is the meaning of aerosol? So guys, aerosol, it's a very simple term used in chemistry. Sol basically comes from the word solution, or typically colloidal solutions. What is a colloidal solution? A colloidal solution is the one which is basically a solution made up of colloid particles. What is a colloid particle? A colloid particles are basically particles which have a size of 0.5 micrometers to 500 micrometers. 0.5 micrometers to 500 micrometers, that is typically called as the colloidal solution, right? So if you just think about mixing chalk in water, the chalk particles, they happen to be so small that they may not mix completely. Some of their particles would be of the range of 0.5 micrometers to 500 micrometers. What is a micrometer? Remember, 1 micrometer is equal to 10 to the power minus 6 meters. It is 1 millionth of a meter, right? When you break down 1 meter into million components, single component would be called micrometer, or we also call it microns. I hope all of you guys are able to get it. So this is what we have under the meaning of the word micrometers, and particles which are of the size of micrometers mixed in some solvent, we call them colloids, and the solution would be called colloidal solution. So if I take these colloidal particles and put it in water, then this becomes a hydrosol solution. Sol means colloids, hydro means water. So colloids mixed in water, hydrosol. But when I take these colloids and mix them in air, it becomes aerosol solution. Then it's called aerosol. So aerosol means when colloidal particles are suspended in air, we call it aerosol. So guys, interestingly, air as a whole is also nothing but a colloidal solution. It is typically an aerosol solution only. Air holds a lot of particles, guys. It is a composition of different gases already, but it holds a lot of particles in the form of pollen, in the form of water vapor, in the form of smoke, soot particles. Then it also contains some dust particles, some microorganisms. All of them are typically, spread out or suspended in air in the form of aerosols. So aerosol is basically nothing but particles which are suspended in air. Aero word comes from air, sol word comes from colloids. So if you take any deodorant spray and you spray it, the particles of the deodorant spray, they are liquid particles which are so small that you once spray them out, they will remain suspended in the air for a very long period. It is also nothing but an aerosol solution. I hope you guys are able to understand, right? So this is called aerosol. Now, so stratospheric aerosol injection, that's how the word aerosol comes. Now, stratosphere, all of you know, stratosphere is a layer of the atmosphere. When you look at the atmosphere in general, we all understand atmosphere is made up of multiple layers, right? If this is the planet Earth, the first layer of the atmosphere is called troposphere, right? It's called the troposphere. And then after the troposphere, we have got the stratosphere, right? Stratosphere. And then after the stratosphere, we have got something called the mesosphere, right? Then after the mesosphere, we have got something called the thermosphere, right? Thermosphere. And then beyond the thermosphere, we have got something called the exosphere. So like this, the atmosphere of the Earth has multiple layers. This typically SAI, or stratospheric aerosol injection, typically means that we are trying to inject some aerosol particles in the stratosphere. We are trying to inject some aerosol particles in the stratosphere, right? That's basically the meaning of the word stratospheric aerosol injection means, right? It is injecting aerosol particles in stratosphere. So what are aerosols? These are particles that are capable of suspending, that are capable of floating in the air, right? So it is injecting aerosol particles in the stratosphere. I hope all of you understand. Now, this stratospheric aerosol injection is a technique that has been found to be highly useful in mitigating the impact of global warming. Actually, I'll tell you that how this concept first was cited. So guys, scientists basically studied a lot of volcanic eruptions. Typically the Haiti volcanic eruption in 2009 and 10, you might have heard of it, and then some volcanic eruption that happened around Tonga, then in Indonesia. There were a couple of volcanic eruptions that scientists have studied in the past 50 years. And what they discovered, that whenever a volcanic eruption happens, a lot of volcanic dust gets released, and this dust, because of the high energy and the high temperature, this dust gets dispersed, and because of the air around the volcanic eruption gets lighter, the dust also rises up and eventually creates a massive cloud that is so dense that it stops any sunlight from reaching the ground. So when till the time this dust remains in the atmosphere, there is no sunlight that is able to reach the ground, and the surface temperature around the volcanic eruption site starts getting cooler because there is no direct sunlight. So this is one of the very common thing that we see, because when a volcanic eruption happens, the cloud that is created around the volcano is so dense, it stops all the sunlight from reaching the surface. And because it stops all the sunlight from reaching the surface, it essentially causes a significant decline in the temperature of the Earth's surface. And that gave the inspiration to the scientists that we are already struggling with climate change and global warming, and we know that the average temperature of Earth is rising. So why don't we simply take some aerosol particles which are capable of reflecting the sunlight and simply sprinkle them, inject them into the stratosphere. Why to inject it only into the stratosphere? Because if you put it in the troposphere, then tropospheric particles will eventually get mixed in rainwater, and they would essentially fall back, eventually causing pollution of the air, pollution of the rivers, pollution of the surface water. So instead of manipulating the tropospheric troposphere's ability to reflect sunlight, it is better to manipulate the stratospheric ability of reflecting the sunlight, and that is where the concept of stratospheric aerosol injection was born. I hope all of you are able to understand. Now, this field of manipulating the Earth's climate, we call it Earth's climate and manipulating the sun's light, we call it solar geoengineering. Geoengineering is a very commonly used word nowadays, also called as climate engineering. This is basically finding engineering based solutions that can rapidly decline the sun's light reaching Earth and sun's light that is supposed to be reflected from Earth. So that is the concept from where stratospheric aerosol injection was born. So stratospheric aerosol injection is a solar geoengineering technique that is proposed to combat global warming by artificially cooling the Earth. I hope you understand why it is calling artificial cooling, because we are artificially going to inject all these particles that will enable us to reflect sunlight back into space, more sunlight back into space, causing a cooling effect on the Earth's or in the Earth's natural atmosphere. I hope all of you understand. So what is the idea, guys? So how we are basically trying to manipulate the sun's light? How are we trying to sprinkle some particles and reflect the sun's light? So here we'll see that it involves deliberate injection of reflective aerosols. I hope you understand, because they are trying to reflect the sun's light. Reflective aerosols such as sulfur dioxide. So remember, guys, this can be asked in the UPSC exam, which of these particles can help in reducing or basically help in better radiative forcing of the Earth, or better reflection of sunlight from the Earth. Remember, sulfur dioxide. So sulfur dioxide particles, when they are sprinkled over or injected in the stratosphere, they can significantly help in reflecting the incoming sun's light and radiated back into the space. This technique mimics the natural cooling effect observed after a major volcanic eruption. So I hope you understand that this naturally happens whenever a volcanic eruption takes place. So it is trying to mimic that. But you can understand volcanic clouds or volcanic dust normally remains prominent in the troposphere. Here we are trying to do it at the stratosphere. You understand the reason, in order to not affect the tropospheric weather formats, weather conditions and pollution levels, offering a short-term strategy to offset rising temperature caused by the greenhouse gases. I hope all of you guys are able to understand. Guys, very recently I've also started the course on environment. We have taken just 2 classes as of now, and students who have already enrolled to this particular course, they are highly advised to make sure that you join this particular series as well. You will be able to learn and relate the developments that we take up in the class, and you will be able to relate them easily with this series, right? Now, this is how basically the SAI or stratospheric aerosol injection technique works. So you can understand that, look at this. So here we have got the troposphere. So troposphere is here, you can see tropopause that separates the troposphere and stratosphere, and here we have got the stratosphere. So the first step is basically to sprinkle all these aerosol particles. Now as these aerosol particles are going to create a layer that will reflect a significant amount of sun's light back into the space, it will lower down the overall sun's light reaching Earth, and by doing this, this can help in reducing the temperature of the Earth's surface, right? So remember guys, this is basically the concept that is used in stratospheric aerosol injection. You all understand that there are a lot of factors due to which the sun's light is getting trapped more and more in the Earth's atmosphere, especially in the troposphere. So you know that there is something called cirrus cloud. You can see these are the cirrus cloud that happens to be the ones that traps the sun's light from getting escaped, and that causes global warming. There are a lot of other things also. Clouds, they also happens to stop a lot of sun's light, but a significant amount of clouds also reflect them back into the Earth, back into the space. So SAI works by this principle, and this is what is the concept behind stratospheric aerosol injection. I believe all of you guys have been able to understand. Now let's see what is the mechanism that they use. So the mechanism I have already explained. It's a very simple mechanism. They basically we inject the sulfur dioxide SO2, which reacts with the water vapor in the stratosphere, forming sulfuric acid aerosols. SO2 basically converts into SO3 when it is exposed to sunlight, and SO3 is a water soluble acidic gas. It dissolves in water and converts the water into H2SO4, sulfuric acid. And this sulfuric acid particles remain so small that they remain suspended comfortably across the stratospheric layer, and that makes the aerosols. These aerosols do not fall quickly and linger for months to years, so they can last for a very long period, helping us to keep the entire entire stratosphere completely reflective for years to come. Radiative forcing reduction. So radiative forcing is basically the term that we use that checks the amount of radiation Earth has received and Earth has reflected. So it is basically the difference between the radiation that Earth has received and Earth has reflected. So if we are reflecting a lot of radiation, that means the radiative forcing have reduced. And if we are absorbing more and reflecting less, that means the radiative forcing have increased. So the idea is basically the aerosols increase the Earth's albedo. Albedo is basically the amount of sunlight that we are reflecting, which enhances the albedo, leading to reduced solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface. And that's how we reduce the radiative forcing of the Earth. The significance of this particular technique is it has a climate cooling potential. Guys, we already know that according to almost every international organization, according to almost every environmental report that has been released in the past decade, every report says that it is very less likely to mitigate the impact of global warming, to achieve the target of keeping the increase of Earth's temperature to just 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030. It is difficult. So if stratospheric aerosol forcing like techniques are adopted, they can really help in cooling the Earth by almost 0.6 degrees Celsius. Cooling the Earth by almost 0.6 degrees Celsius, and can further be increased to cooling Earth by 1 degree Celsius. That is the kind of potential which stratospheric aerosol forcing can introduce. I hope all of you understand. Then another significance is aerosol behavior. In higher altitudes, aerosol remain longer for a period. So it is not considered to be something that happens to be put consistently, and it will be very costly. It was not going to be very costly because once the aerosols are spread, they would remain there for a fairly long period, right? Enhancing cooling, especially near the equator where the stratosphere is higher, right? Then what is the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge is environmental risk. It has been found, although it has not been practiced widely, USA have practiced it in some cases, some other countries have practiced it in some cases, but it has not been put widely. Many scientists are fearful on this thing that if we put a large scale use of stratospheric aerosol forcing, it can change or disrupt the monsoon and the hydrological cycle of the Earth. That means some places which may not be receiving high rainfall, they may start receiving high rainfall, and some places which may be receiving average rainfall, they may run dry, right? So this is something that may change. And secondly, guys, the blue color of the sky that we see, it is also because of these dust particles, nitrogen, oxygen particles in the sky. if we put stratospheric aerosol forcing or stratospheric aerosol injection, this may also change the entire color of the sky from blue to a little whitish gray in color. So that may also be something that may change, right? So the kids in the future generation would not see the blue sky if it is put in across the planet. Unequal climate effects, more cooling in polar areas than tropics, raising fairness concerns. Global governance challenges. Aerosol injections affects all nations, creating a geopolitical risk amid lacking of global regulations. So there is no global standardization of SAI. So if a single country would take up this initiative, the adjoining countries may also get affected. So it is important that if we take up this initiative at a global level, there has to be global regulations first made for aerosol forcing. Then scientific uncertainties. Cooling requires continuous injection. Sudden stop may risk the rapid warming, termination shock. This is also a possibility that may happen. So if we take up this initiative, we have to implement it to the full execution. We can't stop in between, right? Or otherwise things may go against our interest. So these are basically the important points that one should know regarding stratospheric aerosol forcing. Remember, it's an important topic. UPSC have already asked a question related to the methods available, the geoengineering solutions available. So you can still expect a question on specifically on stratospheric aerosol forcing, especially from the risk associated to it. I hope all of you guys are able to understand. Let's now move to the second topic. The second topic of our discussion is NV Stats. NV Stats India 2025. Now NV Stats, this has been released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program, and this particular NV Stats India is the 8th edition of its kind, right? So it is India's environmental statistics, and this has been published annually since the year 2018. It is published annually by the National Statistics Office since 2018. So from 2018 onwards, they have been publishing on an annual basis. And guys, they align exactly as per the framework for the development of environmental statistics called FDES 2013. So this is United Nations own initiative in order to ensure that all the developmental and environmental statistics are basically made and in a uniform manner across the earth, so that we have a global structured, a similar standardized parameters for global comparison and structuring. I hope you all understand. So it's a data driven initiative, very important. So data presented in the publication are organized into 6 components. There are total 6 components which are in line with the FDES framework, right, of 2013. What are the 6 parameters? Number 1 is climate trends. I've also shared the findings of the climate trends. The finding says annual mean temperature from the year 2001 to 2024 have increased from 25.05 degrees Celsius to 25.74 degrees Celsius. That means a comfortable increase of 0.69 degrees Celsius, right? So this clearly shows that there is an uptrend. Okay, there is a consistent uptrend in the overall temperature. Second is rainfall pattern. The rainfall pattern has also found out that the monsoon behavior has become more erratic, more irregular. It has been marked by high inter-annual variability, but no long-term trend has been detected. And if there is no long-term trend detected, that means the variations are very high, and that clearly shows that it is getting more and more uncertain with time. Third parameter is energy, the dependency on thermal power, renewable energy, all these things. So thermal energy, it has increased. Thermal energy means coal-based energy, particularly for India. It has increased from 7.92 lakh gigawatt hour to 13, nearly doubling, guys, in from 2013 to 2023-24. Renewable energy at the same time has also jumped, right? 65,000 to 2.25 lakh, an increase of nearly 3.8 times. So renewable energy has also increased, but still, guys, according to the government of India, also more than 50%, in fact somewhere close to 70% of all the energy that is generated in India, it is still being produced from thermal power or coal based power. So this is something which is an important point to check. Then fourth parameter is fisheries, the total fish production in the country, right? So inland fish production nearly has doubled from 61.36 lakh tons to 139 from 2013 to 2024, and the marine fish production have reached 44.95 lakh tons in 2023, highlighting again a growing blue economy, right? Now this is an important parameter that tells us about the water resources of the country, the usage of the water resource, the water footprint, and also how climate change may be affecting the marine and aquatic biodiversity. Then guys, the overall biodiversity, India has been found to be a home of nearly 1 lakh animal species. Fauna means animal, including 22,000 soil, 9,400 freshwater, and 5,023 mangrove species. I hope all of you understand. Then environmental sector expenditure. What has been the expenditure in the environmental sector? The highest allocation of rupees 2,433 crores to the environment sustainability sector has been made. The lowest allocation has been made in the area of agroforestry, indicating funding imbalances in the subsectors, right? And guys, there are some new indicators also that has been highlighted under the NV Stats India 2025 report, and those are like mentioned data on Ramsar sites. Ramsar sites are basically wetlands, lakes, river patches, salt pans, paddy fields. It's a very wide scale definition for Ramsar sites. What is the status of the Ramsar sites? They are important sources of carbon sequestration and also for groundwater recharge. So they are important locations here. What the status on sanitation, transportation, electricity access, all these are important parameters, new indicators that have been inducted into the NV Stats India list. Now remember guys, the reason of discussing this NV Stats, although it is completely factual, but you can understand the reason behind this discussion is mainly to tell you the importance of data. This data once collected, and that too if it is collected from the UN standards, that means we can have better global comparison, and with this data we'll be in a better position to judge how secure India would be in considering the future climate change challenges and such, or sustainable development goals, how close we are in achieving the sustainable development goals as well. Now guys, next topic of our discussion is Climate Change Performance Index 2025. Now Climate Change Performance Index, this is another popular initiative, another popular report that is often discussed in the domain of environment and ecology. UPSC have asked questions on the Climate Change Performance Index previously also, and you can expect the various parameters, objectives, and also the various findings of this report. It is published by 3 organizations since 2005. It's German Watch, Climate Action Network, and Climate Action Network International, and New Climate Institute. All 3 of them are technically NGOs which basically together publish this report. It is published annually since the year 2025. The objective is to enhance transparency and evaluate progress towards Paris Agreement goals. The Paris Agreement goals have been released in 2015 once the Paris Agreement of United Nations Convention on Climate Change, of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change happened. It was the Conference of Parties number 21 where the Paris Agreement was introduced, and the Paris Agreement has or aims to limit the increase in average global temperature to 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. To limit the average increase in the global temperature within 2 degrees Celsius since the Industrial Revolution, and within 2 degrees Celsius, and it has an extended goal of keeping the average increase in temperature within 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030. So this is the Paris Agreement, and according to the Paris Agreement, the Climate Change Performance Index of 2025 that was released, it was simply to check the progress towards the Paris Agreement goals. The assessment criteria that they follow is greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy, climate policy. These are the 3, and the energy use, overall energy use. These are the 4 parameters that they check: greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy, and total energy use, and climate policy. And based on these 4 parameters, they start identifying or ranking different countries. It covers 63 plus European Union, so technically 64 countries are covered, and all these 64 countries are responsible for over 90% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Over 90% of the global greenhouse gas emissions comes from these 64 countries only. Now, what are the key performances, or what are the key highlights? The first highlight itself is very interesting. No country comes in the top 3 position. That means not even a single country is in position to achieve the full Paris Agreement targets, especially the target of limiting the increase in temperature within 1.5 degrees Celsius target, right? No country on earth is in that particular bracket. Although the fourth place has been achieved by Denmark, it has been performing the best out of the 64 countries, followed by Netherlands, UK. UK has shown a very good progress. It was not at the sixth position earlier, but it has shown a very good progress, especially because they have come up with a policy of phasing out the coal that they are using in the country for producing energy. Right? Philippines, Morocco, and Norway. Out of the 64 countries, only 22 countries show progress while 42 countries lag behind. And especially when it comes to G20 nations, the strongest 20 countries of the world, they are primarily responsible for nearly 75% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Out of these G20 countries, India and UK have only shown an increase or a high performance of their climate policies or their initiatives. Rest 18 countries have still shown poor performance in 2025 considering climate change. And when you talk about the bottom performers, look at the G20, try to identify the G20 countries, guys. Japan, Argentina, Taiwan, Kazakhstan, Canada, South Korea, Russia, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran. Right, so many G20 countries in the list, all of them have been the bottom performers. India's performance have been highly appreciated, although our rank has got slipped by 2 positions, but we still make it to the top 10 list, and it has been appreciated. India's rank 10th with a score of 67.99, slipping 2 positions, but remaining in the top 10. It has been rated high in greenhouse gas emissions and energy use, right? But medium in terms of climate policy and low in renewable energy. Progress areas are expansion of large-scale solar power projects, implementation of rooftop solar schemes. You all have heard of Surya Ghar Yojana, right? Increasing EV adoption and introduction of new energy efficiency standards. These are the initiatives that has been highly appreciated across the world in this report. The major concerns still are continued reliance of coal. Like I said, more than 70% of the energy still produced is from coal, and plans to increase production raise questions about the long-term sustainability and ranking of India in this particular scheme. So this was basically the discussion in the Climate Change Performance Index 2025. Only this much is important because it was mostly factual. If a question is likely to be asked, the question could be related to the issues that can eventually arise from the discussion of the data coming up from Climate Change Performance Index. Now guys, the fourth topic of our discussion is United Nations Ocean Conference 2025. This conference was organized, if I'm not wrong, on 12th of June 2025. And this particular conference happened in a city called Nice in France. The host countries were France and Costa Rica, right? And the theme of this particular conference was accelerating action and mobilizing all actors to conserve and sustainably use the oceans. Like I said in the beginning also, it has the third conference of its kind. The first conference was founded, or it was the first and also the foundation event for the UN Conference on Oceans in 2017. And then second conference happened in 2022, and this has been the third conference. The objective is to address governance, financing, scientific knowledge, and climate adaptation initiatives. And one of the main objectives of this conference is to help achieve or reinforce the Sustainable Development Goal number 14. I believe all of you guys are aware, Sustainable Development Goals. There are total 17 goals that have been introduced that have been ratified by the United Nations. And these are the goals that were started from 1st January 2015, and in a span of 15 years, that means by 31st December 2030, these 17 goals are likely to be achieved. This is my recommendation and advice for all of the students to keep all the 17 sustainable development goals written in front of you whenever you are preparing, right in front of you in your study table, so that you should be in a constant, it should be in your constant visibility that what are the 17 sustainable development goals. Marking or citing the sustainable development goals gives you a very good edge when you're writing answers, right? So reinforce sustainable development goal number 14, that is life below water. focusing on sustainable fisheries, pollution control, and marine conservation. These are the three areas where the Ocean Conference or the Sustainable Development Goal number 14 looks for. Then guys, what are the key initiatives or outcomes from the UN Ocean Conference number 3? There were two major outcomes that came out from there. The first outcome is Blue NDC Challenge. Blue NDC. NDC basically is related to the word called nationally determined contributions. Nationally determined contributions has been a part of Paris Agreement, where countries take unanimous decisions or unanimous commitments in order to achieve the Paris Agreement long-term objective. Like India has already announced its own NDCs, and we have announced twice, by the way, NDC 1, NDC 2, and if I go by the latest nationally determined contributions announced by India, we call it the Panch Amrit commitment, under which India has already made a commitment that by 2050, by 2070, India is going to become a net zero carbon emitter. That means the total carbon that India is likely to produce will also absorb the same amount of carbon, keeping the net carbon release zero. Then other objectives are to make India at least 50% of the energy produced should be through renewable energy. To produce 500 gigawatts of new renewable energy, non-fossil fuel based energy. Then reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by up to 45%. So likewise, we have made total 5 commitments. And Indian commitments are not sector based. We have only made NDCs which are general in nature, which talks about the total greenhouse gas emissions, total carbon footprint, total carbon capturing, all these things. So we have not made any commitments which are sector specific. Although the Blue NDC, as the name suggests, blue is related to blue economy, or you can say it is related to the initiatives related to fisheries, fishing, right? So this basically, so what is Blue NDC Challenge? It is basically urging countries to incorporate ocean focused climate measures which are typically focused for oceans in their NDCs, and announce these NDCs at the 30th COP that is happening this year in Brazil at Belém, and this COP is likely to happen in the month of November. And this COP, when it will be organized, the Ocean Blue NDC Challenge is basically trying to convince countries to take some ocean focused initiatives and put them in your NDCs that you are likely to achieve by 2030. Got it? The deadline for the third set of NDCs is 2035. For basically the third set of NDCs which are likely to be achieved by 2035 was February 10, 2025. This year in the month of February, all countries were supposed to announce their NDCs for 2035. But guys, India has not yet announced. In fact, no country out of the large emitters have announced this. So it is very likely that by the COP30 that is going to be organized in November 2025, before that, India, and it is trying to convince all the countries to take some ocean focused climate measures and put them in your NDCs, right? India has not yet agreed on this particular challenge, but if we agree, we'll see some differences, some changes in the NDC 3 that are likely to be announced in this year's Brazil COP. Got it? Only 21 countries of the 195 parties have made their submissions this year. But remember guys, none of these 21 countries are the major emitters, right? They are not the major emitters. Australia, Fiji, Kenya, Mexico, Palau and Seychelles have already joined the initiative of Blue NDC Challenge, committing to include ocean focused climate actions in their updated NDCs. I hope you guys are able to understand. The second outcome, which is typically a very important outcome considering another polluting agent, plastics. It's called the NICE Wake Up Call for Ambitious Plastic Treaty. Guys, it is already a surprise that we have been negotiating for many years to come up with a global plastic treaty. A treaty to reduce the plastic pollution that is legally binding globally. This year 2025 is again expected to be a year where an actual global plastic treaty may be finalized. So in order to finalize a global plastic treaty, NICE Wake Up Call for an ambitious plastic treaty. So you can understand when you read it, you will be able to understand that the purpose is basically to divert attention of all the countries to take up the issue of plastic treaty seriously. Got it? That's basically the idea. So the nice wake up call comes ahead of the next round of UN plastic treaty negotiations, that is INC 5.2, scheduled for August 5th and 14, August 5th to August 14 in 2025. It is going to be held in Geneva, Switzerland, right? It is a push for a legally binding global plastic treaty, especially as negotiations have missed the previous deadlines. There have been a couple of previous deadlines and negotiations have already missed that. So it is important that we regularize and come up with an actual plastic treaty by this year. So this is the wake up call for it. And the wake up call basically identifies 5 crucial elements considering an effective global plastic treaty. What are these 5 elements? You can read it. It's completely factual. I do not think there's a need to explain this thing at all. But still, I'll help you out. So there's a need for a global target to reduce the primary production of plastic polymers across the world. Second is phasing out the most problematic plastic waste. The most problematic plastic products, which are supposed to be highly dangerous and chemically unstable, they need to be phased out. Right? They need to be phased out. Improving the design of plastic products overall so that their recyclability is easier. Remember guys, plastic is not biodegradable. In no way plastic is biodegradable. You can actually make new types of plastic additives which can help in breaking down the plastic faster, right? So you can design the plastic waste in plastic products in such a way so that they are easily recycled, they are easily degraded. You can add some more components so that they are degraded faster. Effective means for implementation and finance that are commensurate with the ambition and guided by the polluter pay principle. That means the one who pollutes more or releases more plastic waste, he should be, a new financial mechanism should be made so that the money is diverted from the polluter to the beneficiary, to the right beneficiaries. An effective treaty can evolve over time. So coming up with a treaty and making it effective over a period. So we all understand that, we have seen that in the previous initiatives also, like Kyoto Protocol. No treaty is a complete absolute treaty, a perfect treaty in the first discussion. But as and when more countries participate, more countries accept it, implement it, they come across with challenges, and that's how the treaty, the overall nature of the treaty is also improvised. So this is basically the wake up call for an ambitious plastic treaty. And under this discussion only, 96 countries have signed the nice wake up call for ambitious plastic treaty, and it is open to others also to join. India is not among the members as of now. India has not joined the nice wake up call as of now, although India has come up with some other initiatives related to the ocean conference number 3. Like India has supported the ratification of the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction BBNJ agreement. Now what is this BBNJ agreement? BBNJ agreement is basically part of the United Nations UN clause, United Nations Convention on Laws of the Sea. So it's another initiative of United Nations which basically talks about freedom of navigation, which talks about demarcation of the oceans and also protection of the ocean reserve, ocean biodiversity, ocean, right? So under the United Nations Convention on Laws of the Sea, this is the third agreement called BBNJ, which India has supported and asked countries to duly ratify this particular agreement, which is called Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement. And India has also advocated, although we have not joined the nice wake up call, but we have advocated for a legally binding global plastic treaty as well, right? And then India has also launched SAHAV. SAHAV is a digital ocean data portal. So remember guys the name, it's a digital, you should remember the name of SAHAV, Digital Ocean Data Portal, underscoring its leadership in global marine governance. To make global marine governance more efficient, this is the initiative that India has launched. Please make sure that you remember the name of the initiative. And now guys, moving on to the next topic. The next topic is AV list. It is related to it is the first ever checklist on bird biodiversity, bird species ever released. So it's a small data guys, not a very long discussion, but you should be able to understand easily. So AV list is the first ever unified global checklist on bird species. India as of now was not a part of it, but you can understand it has basically covered 11,131 species and 19,879 subspecies. What is the meaning of subspecies, guys? Subspecies means that it is related to the same species. The members of the two different subspecies can still interbreed with each other, but they still have some genetic differences, some observable differences easily, right? Like when you talk about different types of different types of tigers. Like we have got tigers in India, we have got tigers in, we call them the Bengal tiger, then we have Javan tigers, then we have Sumatran tigers, then Sumatran tigers still there, Javan tigers unfortunately have got extinct, then we have Siberian tigers, like this. So all of them are technically subspecies, so they can still interbreed with each other and give birth to fertile offsprings. So you can make hybrids of these subspecies, but they are still genetically different enough that they are not part of the exactly same species, right? So that basic genetic difference is still there, right? We call it subspecies. I hope you guys are able to understand, right? So they have covered 2,376 genera, 252 families and 46 orders. When we discuss biology, we'll talk about how these orders, families, genera and subspecies are identified. I hope you all understand. So AVList is a global bird checklist standardizing over 11,000 species. It has been developed by a working group on avian checklist comprising of BirdLife International. It's a global NGO, guys, very important. BirdLife International, also part of IUCN network. Cornell Lab of Ornithology, AV-Base. AOU is basically American Ornithological Union, and IOU is International Ornithological Union, right? And this AV list also replaces the existing list which was made by the International Ornithological Committee and Clements checklist, right? So this basically now creates one global standard for identifying all the bird species. So now if India wants, we can adopt this particular standards of the AV list, and when we conduct our own national bird census, we call it the Salim Ali bird census, which is a voluntary census, public voluntary census for all the birds in the country, then we can consider the checklist, we can consider the standardization made by the AV list. I hope all of you understand this, right? So this is another important data that one should remember. Then guys, an interesting topic, what is the meaning of real field temperature? Now guys, all of you must have heard that Delhi, surprisingly in the last few 10-15 days have witnessed, although in the past couple of days the weather has been good, the weather has been somewhat, somewhat cordial, but we have seen that the temperature of Delhi was sometimes around 40-41 degrees, but the real field temperature was showing as 50 degrees. That means what is the meaning of the word real field? Let me just tell you first of all that Indian Meteorological Department do not record real field temperature. This is something that is offered as an added feature when we use various weather applications, various types of weather applications, which are mostly non-Indian, or even if it is Indian, this is an additional feature that is offered. But Indian Meteorological Department actually do not record or do not consider the real feel of the temperature. They only talk about the temperature, the absolute temperature that is there. Now what is the idea here? The real field temperature basically talks about how the human body is going to respond to that temperature. So if the temperature is 40 degree, the human body may feel that the temperature is 50 degrees. And the impact of the body would not be of 40 degree, but would be of 50 degrees. So in the real field, they consider various parameters. It is not just temperature. I've also talked about wet bulb and dry bulb temperature in one of my lectures. It is available online for free of cost. I would expect you to watch it. It is there in the second class. Maybe in the first class only I have talked about dry bulb and wet bulb temperature. And once you guys look at it, you'll be having a better idea that what exactly is the meaning of wet bulb and dry bulb temperature. So the real field temperature considers not just the average temperature of the location, but it also considers the humidity levels. It also considers the wind speed. It also considers the air ventilation, right? I hope you all understand. If there is a lot of blockages, the feel of the temperature will change, right? So all these factors are often considered, and the kind of stress that the temperature will be putting onto the human body. These are the parameters that are often checked. So it is often referred as the heat index. So real field temperature is often referred as the heat index, but this is basically for the heat. During the cold wave, this may change, right? During cold wave, if there is chilling winds running over, the temperature may be still high, but if there are chilling winds over a city, then the feel of the temperature will be much lower, right? The real field temperature is the calculated value that combines actual air temperature with relative humidity to indicate how hot it feels to the human body, right? To indicate how hot it feels to the human body. It's a very elegant way of writing it, right? The real field temperature fluctuates throughout the day based on temperature and humidity. I hope you understand. Wind speed also is mattering here. When humidity is high, sweat evaporates less efficiently. That also increases the wet bulb temperature, making it harder for the body to cool down and making the air feel much hotter than its actual temperature. That's the idea. And in contrast, dry air allows faster evaporation, reducing the heat stress. So when the air is completely dry, the sweat evaporates much faster, leaving a cooling effect on the body. So that is the idea of real feel, and which basically considers humidity as well as temperature, right? And now the next topic of discussion is global ocean darkening. What is this concept of global ocean darkening? Global ocean darkening is basically nothing but shrinking of the photic zone. Now guys, let me give you a context first and then we'll talk about it. So when we talk about the global oceans or oceans in general, we have noticed that the ocean water can be divided into two areas primarily. One is called the photic zone. Photic zone is that particular region of the oceans where sunlight can reach easily, up till where sunlight can penetrate easily. We consider this depth up to 200 meters. Up to 200 meters, we have the photic zone where when you dive up to this much of depth in the oceans, sunlight can reach up to this much of depth, right? So it is possible for plants to grow in this much of depth because sunlight is able to reach, they can perform photosynthesis. It is also possible that because sunlight is able to reach, that average temperature of this water will be slightly hotter, warm enough for various organisms, various animals and plants to survive, right? So you can find life predominantly in the photic zone. But the moment when you cross the 200 meters mark, you enter into the aphotic zone. The aphotic zone of the water is the rest of the oceans, and this is of course the major part of the ocean is aphotic only because average ocean depth is around 3,500 meters. But the upper 200 meters happens to be the most productive part of the ocean. You guys can understand because all kinds of plants, animals we can expect only in the photic zone. But of course it does not mean that animals are not found in the aphotic zone. A lot of animals are found in the aphotic zone as well, but their metabolism, their functioning would be of a different nature. Right now in our discussion it is important to consider the photic zone. So in the name of ocean darkening, when we say ocean darkening, it's basically the shrinking of the photic zone. The photic zone is getting shrunk. There are multiple reasons for it. We'll talk about the reasons eventually, but the photic zone is getting shrunk. And guys, this shrinking of photic zone is a major concern because all major plants, animals, the entire ocean biodiversity is lying in the photic zone itself. So this becomes a major point of concern when you talk about ocean biodiversity, when you talk about marine ecosystem. So now let's talk about the ocean darkening. So ocean darkening also refers as the shrinking of the photic zone. 21% of the global oceans have darkened in the 20 years of 2003 to 2022. 21% of the oceans. Most prominent darkening was observed in the open oceans, particularly in the climate sensitive oceans like Arctic region, Antarctic region and the Gulf Stream region, right? Why Arctic specifically? It's mainly because of the melting of ice caps, the water levels have risen, and as the water level has risen, it's of course the photic zone has started shifting upwards, causing a huge impact on the phytoplanktons, on the plants, animals found in the photic zone at the lower range. So what are the major reasons why the oceans are getting darker? So let's see. So number one reason is agriculture runoff. There is an excessive use of fertilizers and the runoff of these fertilizers into the oceans. it is typically happening in India as well. A lot of this fertilizers, lot of the sewage, lot of different types of waste nutrients, they often get drained into the rivers, and from those rivers they eventually pass into the oceans and causing a major runoff of agricultural waste into this region, causing the algae to bloom across the oceans, algae and other plants to bloom because of the change in the nutrition level, and leading to darkening of the oceans. Less sunlight is able to penetrate into the photic zone, right? So triggering algal blooming, blocking the sunlight from penetrating the ocean waters. I hope you understand. This is the first point. Second point is increased sedimentation. We all know, because of rampant mining, because of unplanned construction, because of deforestation, because of change in the land use pattern, the sedimentation in the rivers and eventually causing soil erosions and passing of these eroded soil particles into the oceans have also increased. And this increased sedimentation is also one of the major reasons for ocean darkening. Then next is plankton dynamics. What are planktons, guys? Planktons are basically, they are mini or microscopic, because sometimes you can see them with your eyes also, sometimes you need a microscope. So they are mini or microscopic organisms. They basically float. They are floating organisms. They float on the ocean water, and wherever the ocean water takes them through ocean currents, through ocean waves, the planktons keeps moving. They could be both plant-like and animal-like. If they are plant-like, that means they are performing photosynthesis. We call them phytoplanktons. If they are animal-like, that means they eat the phytoplanktons and survive through them. We call them zooplanktons. So planktons are nothing but floating plants and animals, which are minor floating plants and animals. And guys, these planktons play a very important role in maintaining the food web, or maintaining the food chain of the oceans. Most of the ocean fishes, they are dependent on these planktons only for their food and nutrition. So from phytoplanktons only the ocean food chain starts. Phytoplanktons, they act as a primary producer in the ocean ecosystem or marine ecosystem, right? So the plankton dynamics are also changing. Why they are changing? Because climate change is influencing their growth, climate change is influencing their spread, and how sunlight is causing a change in the temperature of the oceans, that is also changing the phytoplankton behavior. In fact, there is also a concern which is not mentioned here, that is marine heat wave. We have been identifying that the temperature of the oceans in some places have increased by up to 3 degrees Celsius as well. We call it the marine heat wave event. We have noticed these events, and these events also cause a massive impact on plankton population. I hope all of you guys are able to understand. Then next is rising sea surface temperature. The sea surface temperature is increasing, making the ocean water warmer, and warmer water directly affects the productivity of plants and animals in the region. Ocean currents, because of the change in the ocean temperature, because of the difference in the melting of the ice caps, the ocean currents have also got weaker, or they have got altered. This also basically makes the entire productivity, the circulation of nutrients, the circulation of different types of plants, animals, those basically gets affected because of ocean currents. So these are the major factors, right, which affects or which have caused ocean darkening. Now, what are the possible impacts of ocean darkening? We have already talked about them. First is marine behaviors are changing, especially starting from the phytoplankton behavior to complex animals. Loss of species, especially those animals which are sensitive to light, right? Like there is a zooplankton mentioned here called copepods, Calanus copepods, right? They basically are important part of the marine food chain, and they are light sensitive organisms, right? They are light sensitive organisms, and because of the ocean darkening, there is a disruption in their own growth. The carbon capturing ability of oceans is getting reduced. See, ocean is already the biggest carbon sink. It has absorbed the maximum amount of carbon already in the form of life, in the form of biodiversity, in the form of calcium carbonate deposits, in the form of carbonate ions, bicarbonate ions, so many things. Because of shrinking of the photic zone, the carbon capturing ability of the oceans have also started decreasing, which is a very big concern, because ocean is already the largest carbon sink. And then the overall livelihood of the people. The people who are directly dependent on ocean and its resource for their livelihood, that is going to be at risk, because the overall productivity of the ocean will reduce, the number of fishes will reduce, the overall spread overall plankton population will also get reduced. So guys, this was all the things that were there in the this ocean darkening. And now this is the last topic of our discussion for today. It is the International Big Cat Alliance. Now, International Big Cat Alliance was an initiative that was again propounded by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It was announced when India celebrated the 50th anniversary of Project Tiger in 2023, right? If I'm not wrong, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Karnataka. He was in Mysore when he announced the inauguration, or when he launched the International Big Cat Alliance. The idea is a very simple idea. It's going to be a multi-country, multi-agency coalition, and 95 countries have been already identified which are having major big cats. Big cats is normally a word used for identifying tiger, lion, leopard, snow leopard, cheetah, jaguar, and puma. These are the animals which are often considered as big cats. Remember guys, if you talk about jungle cats and such, they are not wild cats and such, they are not considered to be big cats still, right? So these are the big cats, and for these big cats, in order to conserve them, in order to share their resources, in order to even transport these cats in a standardized way, this particular alliance have been made. We all know that these big cats happens to be apex predators of their ecosystem. They are keystone species of the ecosystem. So if their population is high, if their population is preserved, then the entire ecosystem is likely to be preserved. So it is important that these big cats are conserved, and also their population keeps growing. They are important species of their local ecosystems. So 95 countries, 95 big cat range countries have been identified, and this particular alliance, their first assembly meeting happened in the month of June this year. So the first assembly meeting of the International Big Cat Alliance was held in New Delhi, and it was endorsed by the Indian Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change as the president of the International Big Cat Alliance. Now guys, this particular meeting was attended by our neighboring countries which are rich in these big cats like Nepal, Bhutan. They attended this particular assembly meeting. And guys, the assembly meeting, the assembly is going to be the apex body of this alliance. So it is going to be the major decision making body, the nodal agency. And in this particular assembly meeting, one of the major revelation, one of the major outcome was the headquarter agreement was signed, and now it has been decided that the headquarter of International Big Cat Alliance is going to be set up in Delhi. So Delhi will be hosting as the headquarter for the International Big Cat Alliance. And guys, after International Solar Alliance, this is going to be the second international organization whose headquarter would be based in India, right? International Solar Alliance, by the way, it is in Gurgaon. I hope all of you understand. So guys, this is the only major outcome of this particular assembly meeting. Other outcomes are not that important from UPSC perspective, but if you have been able to understand everything that we have covered so far, it is very obvious that this is a work in progress. We'll be meeting now on a weekly basis. We'll talk more and more about all the major current affairs. We'll discuss the things to an extent which are important in the UPSC exams, and also we'll try to relate it with the ongoing classes. So if you guys have already joined the classes as well, you'll be able to relate it in a better way with that of the support of the lectures. So guys, this concludes my discussion on the topic of environment and ecology. I'll be meeting soon with the subject of science and technology as well. And for environment, every week I'll be making a one video covering the weekly current affairs. This time we covered 2 weeks. So next time you can expect that we'll be covering 1 week, one entire week's discussion of environment and ecology news. And that is everything from my side right now. All the best, and do write in the comment section if you want any more discussions, if you feel like having more content to be discussed, if you think any areas you require a little more help from the teachers, feel free to connect with us on the comment section. All the best guys. Thank you.